If you know the name Martin Dorey, you'll remember, I have no doubt, the series called The Campervan Cook, which is on the Beeb back in the 1990s. He's since moved on to, well, any number of other projects, including a superb series of guides called Take the Slow Road. They are really, really good. And his next book comes out on September the 11th. And it's a slight departure because not only did he leave the van at home, he left everything else behind as well and took e-bikes down the west coast of Europe. Martin, explain yourself.
Well, Trevor, I mean, I don't know where to start really. I think uh, I've spent the last 8 or 9 years writing books about traveling by campervan and motorhome,
Mhm.
and I've been really enjoying it. It's been really great. We've had a lot of time in vans, in a lot of places in Europe and in the UK. And I just felt it was time to take a year off and do something else. And also, I had a kind of bit of a sort of thing to prove to myself because in 2023, I broke my ACL, which is the anterior cruciate ligament in my knee, which is a kind of, if I was a rugby player or a football player, it would be a career ending injury kind of thing. And I was trying to come back from that. Lizzie and I have been wanting to do some cycle touring for years. But I basically couldn't stand the thought of going cycle touring somewhere where there was surf and not being able to surf.
Mhm.
That was basically the premise. So we thought, well, we'll cycle down the west coast of Europe and we'll somehow take surfboards. So that was the first challenge. And then this kind of route that we followed, which is down the west coast of France, across the top of Spain, and then down the west coast of Portugal to Sagres, which is to Cape St Vincent, which is the most southwesterly point of Europe that they thought was the end of the world. Back in the 1500s when the caravel set off from Portugal. But this kind of route has been travelled over many years since the 1960s by surfers looking for surf.
Ah,
So the idea sort of formed in my mind that we would follow this route, and I've done it many times in a van because it is brilliant. There's really great places to travel, and I'm sure and your listeners will know that there are some. You get to Bordeaux and Biarritz and Santander and Bilbao and then Porto and amazing, amazing places. Um, and so I kind of thought, well, I'd like to do a cycle tour. I don't want to do a cycle tour without surfing. How do we do it? All right, let's put the boards somehow on the bikes and cycle with the surfboards. And that was when the decision to take e-bikes happened because we kind of realized there's no point. I didn't want to cycle without some help because I'm not a particularly great cyclist. Although my wife Lizzie she's crossed the Andes twice on a bike without any electronic assistance. She's pretty hardcore. But of course, I'm a bit of a I'm a bit of an idiot cyclist, and my record of climbing cols in France was basically just throwing a hissy fit and throwing the bike down on the first hairpin. So I felt I needed some help. So we basically got e-bikes, trailers, put surfboards on the trailers, and kind of set off.
right.
That
Not
was
quite
it. And then
as simple as that. What preparation did you do? Obviously obtaining the bikes, making sure the boards were in good nick. Uh, how much preparation was needed, not only in terms of the physical things you took with you, but also the paperwork? Because, of course, there are certain things you have to consider when going to Europe these days, like the 90-day rule.
Yeah, well, we were aiming to do it within 90 days. So that was our time limit. So we didn't have any bureaucracy really,
Mhm.
other than a passport. And we had to book ferries. We didn't book any accommodation ahead. We had some help from the Caravan and Motorhome Club who put us up in some of their sites along the way. But that was as we were going along. So we kind of were self-supporting. We had no help. But in terms of preparation, I did a lot of research about people that had done it before in the 1960s and 70s, and I did a lot of interviews with surfers who had been down that road to find sort of their stories so that they could guide us to the places we were going.
Hmm.
So when we got to a certain place, we got to a place called Zarautz in northern Spain, and I'd interviewed a British surfer who's a friend of mine who's in his 80s now, and he'd been the first person to surf there. So we went there with this kind of, oh wow, okay, so we're following the footsteps of the pioneers, and that was what was really exciting.
And what didn't you feature him in an Instagram post? You were not only doing this journey, not only surfing, but you were also posting to Instagram along the way as a record of your journey. And I remember following these posts, watching your posts every day, and being increasingly in awe that you were actually doing this journey on e-bikes and surfing at the same time. So, and there were all these wonderful characters that cropped up. Is the social media something that you do for pleasure, as a record of your journeys, or is it something that you know you have to do for marketing reasons?
Well, yeah, it's a good question. I know I have to. It's part of my job.
Yeah.
Social media is part of my job, and sometimes I feel that maybe I should drop social media because it's quite stressful to. There's quite a lot of negativity that comes through social media, but using Instagram and Twitter, I think I was using at the time, or X, whatever it was called. Just they're really good for marketing, but they're also good for contacting people
Mm.
and for kind of keeping in touch with people who use the Vanlife hashtag or people who think like me. It is a tool. It's really useful. I quite enjoy doing it, and it's quite nice at the end of the cycling day to kind of sit in a camp chair with a cup of tea or a glass of red wine and just spend 20 minutes going through Instagram and just zoning out. So it's useful from that point of view as well.
Of course, one other aspect of what you do or have done in the past is the 2 minute beach clean, which led to the 2 minute foundation, of which I know you're no longer in charge. But of course, were you doing that along the way as well, the 2 minute beach clean?
We did a bit, yeah. Where we came across rubbish, we would just pick it up. It's become a part of life, really,
Mm.
and part of that sort of leave no trace or leave a positive trace
Yeah,
where you go somewhere. So if we were walking along the beach, we'll just pick stuff up,
yeah.
put it in the bin. It's easy, it's simple. If it's a kind of manifesto for positivity, great. But it just becomes a part of life, and I'd love it if everybody felt the same way. You know, so which is it was just part of what we did. And I guess we were cycling for 76 days in the end,
Mhm.
with I think 3 or 4 days off during that time. And it just became a part of the routine that we
Mhm.
would stop at a beach, maybe have a swim. If the surf was good, we'd have a surf, pick up some litter, have some food, get on the bikes, and off we go again. So, you know,
Yeah, I have to say, having been a teacher, the great thing about being a teacher is you remember at the end of the lesson to leave the room for the next person as you found it. And I think it's an important principle to apply to the planet. Leave the planet as you found it, or leave the planet as you would wish the next generation to find it. And that's something that we really do need to bear in mind and think very, very closely about. So, 76 days surfing down the west coast of
yeah.
of Europe. Um, what were the highlights for you?
Um, I think I think the absolute sense of achievement of reaching Santiago de Compostela.
Wow.
So Santiago de Compostela is the end point of the Camino del Norte, which is the pilgrim route across northern Spain. Well, there's lots of pilgrim routes. They all kind of converge on Santiago.
Yeah.
But reaching Santiago, you kind of arrive in this cathedral square where there's an old 15th century hotel, and then there's the cathedral, which is 12th century, and then there's huge square, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of pilgrims who
Mm.
are all streaming into the square, arriving at the same time, um, and sort of crying with the effort because some of them have been walking for months. Some of them have been carrying their friends,
Mhm.
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And we turned up with surfboards, having ridden across northern Spain. And northern Spain was really, really, really tough. So to get, because Santiago's high up, Spain is the country in Europe the second country after Switzerland with the average highest elevation. So it's mountainous.
Mhm.
And for the first 2 weeks in Spain, we were doing the equivalent of a Scarfell Pike or a Ben Nevis every day in climbing. And it wasn't that we were climbing big mountains. It's just that we were climbing a lot of mountains. So coming into Santiago was really, really, really emotional, because I felt that we'd achieved something that I thought I wasn't capable of. And it was sticking two fingers up at the surgeons who had written me off, who didn't want to repair my ACL. And it was kind of like proof to myself that only I could tell me when to stop.
Yep.
So that was really emotional. And I'll tell you what, Trevor, I'm going to tell you a little secret now, is that we went and checked into the 5-star hotel that's right opposite the cathedral for a night
Well,
because we were so knackered.
why shouldn't you have done after that? Well, pilgrimage, a surfing pilgrimage and an actual pilgrimage to Santiago. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk about the writing process. Were you writing parts of the book as you went along, or did you get back with everything in your head, sit down and say, I have this deadline, I'm going to write the book based on this, and start writing from beginning to end? How did that process go for you?
So that process was really I knew I couldn't write as we went along, because the day-to-day business of cycling, feeding yourself, putting up a tent, blowing up your bed for the umpteenth time, these things take over. So I wrote notes every night, and actually that was another thing. When you put the tent up, you've got your bed ready, you go to a bar, or you go and you've had some food or whatever, and you sit in your camp chair and you look at the sunset and write up the day. So I did that every day without fail. I also used my Instagram posts as inspiration as well, because they were usually about how I was feeling at the time. So if we'd had a really rough day, I would say in the Instagram post, oh my God, we climbed another mountain, or whatever it was. So I used that. So when I got home, sat down, and I had 3 months to write it, I think, maybe a bit longer. So I did nothing else for 3 months, and just wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. But it was all, I had images, I had Instagram posts, I had my notes, I had Lizzie's diary as well, and her pictures. So kind of, I had a lot of material to work with.
And the book is called The Way of the Waves. It is out on September the 11th. And you're going to be in Scotland when it comes out, which is going to be great for the publicity tour.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm not being very helpful to the publicity people. I think we're going to be kayaking to the Summer Isles on the day it comes out, hopefully, if I can arrange it. But I mean, it's fine. That I'll be doing some publicity at various points in the winter, I think, up to Christmas probably. So it's fine.
You are your own best advertisement, your own best publicist. All people have to do is follow you on Instagram, and they will see the joy you derive not only from van life, but from surfing, and from, I have to say, Dr. Lizzy Kay, your wonderful wife who supports you in everything. Liz is a marine biologist in her own right, isn't she?
She's actually a botanist. So
right.
we call her Dr. Seaweed because she has a PhD in seaweed and photosynthesis in Porphyra, which is nori, which is the black Japanese seaweed.
Yep.
So she's a botanist, and actually it's really interesting traveling with her because she sees landscape through the plants in it, and through the plants you see the soil, and then that sort of makes you question why the soil's like that, and actually it's really good to be able to describe landscape through its the nature that is in it. So actually, rather than saying, oh, it's there's a load of trees on the left, it's like, well, actually it's a conifer plantation, it shouldn't be there, or it's an Atlantic oak forest or whatever, or Scots pines down the west coast of France. In fact, they're not Scots pines down the west coast of France, they're a different type of pine. But it really helps in sort of trying to describe the literal landscapes we traveled through on this book. And we went through some amazing landscapes, some really wild stuff. You know, big eucalyptus plantations, big mountains in Spain, and lots of pine forest in France, which was just beautiful. On those, it was, you know, the first 1,200 kilometers were flat. It was
Yeah.
incredible, with really great cycle paths. Then you get to Spain, and it just goes straight up. First thing we did in Spain was climb a mountain of 450 meters, which doesn't sound very much, but it was enough. And it was raining all day. Yeah, and just Lizzie's, you know, being there just really helps me with my work. And you know, I don't think I would do it on my own. So it's really great. She's someone to sort of push me out the door, go, come on, let's do it. All right, okay, brilliant, fine, let's do it.
As
So
the
I
as the son of keen gardeners, I have to say I entirely identify with that. You know, my parents, my mum particularly, would identify plants and say, you know, that's a domestic plant that shouldn't really be there, and then she'd nick it. Used to come used to come home with pockets full of cuttings when we'd been away. She'd have a sopping wet paper hanky in her anorak pocket, and she'd take cuttings very carefully from the gardens we visited. And the result is outside my window as we speak, and I'm trying to keep it down.
yeah, well, this can get a bit exuberant. I mean, Lizzie's the same, really. She'll the van is, when we come back from trips, it'll be quite often full of seeds. You know, I'll still look at the dashboard, like, what the hell is all this? Oh, they're so and so's and so and so's. Oh, right, okay. And she'll be saving yogurt pots because she wants to. Her latest thing is to get bilberries from Scotland, so to put them in the garden.
Oh,
Um, but it's like, well, yeah, you know, we've got another month to drive around. You're not going to dig up a bilberry and leave it in this van. But anyway, it's all fun. It's all fun. It's all good.
if she wants any blackberries, there are some outside my back door. They've been very fruitful this year, literally. I'm sick of making jam and crumbles. So if you're passing through Derbyshire on the way up to Scotland, do feel free to come and dig up a bramble bush and take it with you. I'm sure
I
you'll.
would really. I won't tell her because she'll go, "Oh yeah, great," and then we'll have to travel around Scotland with it for a month. Thanks very much.
That could be the title of your next book. A bit like
What,
Tony Hawk.
brambles around Scotland?
Yeah, taking a bramble bush around Scotland, a bit like Tony Hawk's taking a fridge to Ireland. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, we travel with stuff. You know what it's like in a van. We've travelled with. We had a sweet potato that went all the way around Spain and Portugal with us, and came home with us that we didn't eat, which just drives me mental. Because like we don't have to carry that. Why have we brought it? It's just using up petrol.
Martin Dorey, I could chat to you all day. Your book, The Way of the Waves, is out on September the 11th. There will be a link in our Facebook and Instagram posts for this very program, so you can click through and buy it, and it won't be an affiliate link. I won't earn a single penny from it, but I hope you earn lots of quids from it. Martin, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your time, and good luck with your next adventures.
Thank you very much, Trevor. It's always nice to talk to you.
Cheers, thanks.